Admiral Zhang Wei stood at the viewport of Earth's orbital command, watching what the media had dubbed the cardboard fleet assembling in low orbit. The nickname wasn't entirely inaccurate. What had once been a massive collection of asteroid mining equipment and industrial processing units had been hastily converted into Earth's first line of defense against an alien threat no one had seen coming. "Sir, the Concordiate battle group has just emerged from FTL at the edge of the Kuiper Belt," Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez reported, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Their energy signatures are, well, they're off the charts." Zhang nodded, his weathered face reflecting none of the anxiety churning in his stomach. 6 months ago, humanity's first contact with an alien civilization had gone catastrophically wrong. The Concordiate, a coalition of advanced species, had declared Earth's solar system to be in violation of their spatial mining protocols. The fact that humanity hadn't known these protocols existed didn't seem to matter to them. "How are our conversion rates looking?" Zhang asked, turning to face the holographic display dominating the command center. The screen showed hundreds of mining vessels, their hulls still bearing the logos of various corporations who had, overnight, become Earth's primary military contractors. "Better than expected," answered Dr. Emily Chen, the project's lead engineer. She gestured at the display, highlighting clusters of ships. The mining lasers designed to break down asteroids work surprisingly well as point defense systems, and those huge matter processing vats. Turns out they're excellent at absorbing energy weapons. Zhang allowed himself a small smile. When the Concordiate had first issued their ultimatum, Earth's nations had panicked. They had no warships, no space-based weapons platforms, nothing that could hope to stand against an interstellar civilization. But they did have the largest mining fleet in their sector of space. The Helios Mining Corporation's contribution just came online, Rodriguez added, pulling up another display. They've converted their entire platinum processing facility into what they're calling a debris spreader. It's basically a giant shotgun that fires processed asteroid chunks. The room fell silent as new data streamed in. The Concordiate fleet was massive, their ships sleek crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. According to their scans, each vessel carried enough firepower to level a continent. "They're broadcasting," Rodriguez announced. "Text only. They're laughing at us, sir. They say our primitive industrial waste won't even scratch their shields." Zhang straightened his uniform. "Send them our response. Come and find out." The first battle for Earth began 3 hours later. The Concordiate's flagship, a vessel nearly the size of Manhattan, led the charge. Their energy weapons lit up space like new stars being born, their targeting systems perfect, their tactics flawless. And yet, "Sir, the Helios debris spreader is working exactly as intended," Rodriguez reported, excitement creeping into her voice. "Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons. They're not designed to stop thousands of tons of processed mineral ore moving at relativistic speeds." On the main display, John watched as the first Concordiate ship's shields flickered and failed under the onslaught of what was, essentially, space gravel. The converted mining lasers, powered by the same fusion cores that once broke down asteroids for processing, took advantage of the gaps. "They're pulling back," Dr. Chen announced, disbelief evident in her tone. They actually can't handle it. Their sensors are designed to track energy signatures and artificial materials. Our ships are basically just chunks of refined rock with engines. They can't get a proper lock." John watched as the mighty Concordiate fleet, their perfect formations now in disarray, began to retreat. Humanity's first space battle had been won not with advanced technology or sophisticated weapons, but with mining equipment and industrial waste. "Send a message to all Earth governments," John ordered, his voice firm. "Tell them Operation Cardboard Fleet was a success, and get me a line to the mining corporations. I want to know how quickly they can convert the rest of their equipment. Something tells me we're going to need a bigger fleet." As the command center erupted in celebration, Jean returned his gaze to the viewport. Among the stars, he could see the glint of their improvised warships, their hulls still bearing scratch marks from asteroid impacts and corporate logos. They weren't pretty, they weren't sophisticated, but they were uniquely human. And sometimes, that was enough to change the rules of the game entirely. In the days that followed, analysis of the battle would reveal an uncomfortable truth for the Concordiat. They had fallen into the classic trap of assuming technological superiority equated to tactical superiority. They had never considered that a species might take industrial equipment and turn it into weapons of war. They had never imagined that their sophisticated shields could be defeated by something as simple as high-velocity rocks. Most importantly, they had never encountered a species quite like humanity, a species that looked at mining equipment and saw potential warships, that faced impossible odds with improvised solutions, that turned their very limitations into advantages. The cardboard fleet would go down in history not just as humanity's first space navy, but as a testament to human ingenuity. As Dr. Chen would later write in her memoirs, "We didn't win because we had better technology. We won because we had worse technology. And we made it work anyway. That's the most human thing of all." Grand Admiral Zixis of the Concordiat Defense Force felt a sensation their species equivalent to a migraine as they studied the battle recordings for the 1,000th time. Their crystalline form shifted through various shades of frustrated indigo as they watched their magnificent fleet retreat from what essentially amounted to space garbage. "Explain this to me again," they demanded, addressing the holographic assembly of the Concordiat's finest military minds. "How did we lose to vessels that don't even have proper weapons systems?" Strategic Analyst First Class Nirix's tentacles twisted nervously as they brought up a detailed scan of one of the human vessels. "The problem, Grand Admiral, lies not in what these ships have, but in what they lack. Our targeting systems are designed to track sophisticated energy signatures, artificial materials, and known weapons configurations. These human vessels, they're essentially just refined asteroid matter, held together with primitive fusion welding. They're rocks," Zixis stated flatly. "We lost to rocks. Rocks with engines," corrected fleet technologist Vaughn, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with intellectual excitement. "But it's more complex than that. Look at this footage." The hologram shifted to show a human vessel apparently disintegrating under Concordiat fire. But instead of being destroyed, the debris field it created became a weapon itself, each piece continuing on its trajectory, guided by minimal thrust systems that their sensors had difficulty detecting. "They're not just using ships," Vaughn continued. "They're using the debris from their destroyed ships. Every vessel we destroy becomes 1,000 smaller weapons. It's actually brilliant in its primitiveness." Zixis's crystalline form darkened. "Show me the latest intelligence." The hologram changed again, displaying Earth's orbital space. What had been a handful of converted mining vessels was now a vast cloud of what their sensors insisted on classifying as space debris. Mining platforms, processing facilities, even obsolete satellites had been repurposed into what the humans were calling their defense cloud. "They've turned their entire orbital infrastructure into weapons," Nirix explained. "Those processing vats, they're now filled with refined metal particles that can be released in clouds dense enough to strip our shields through simple kinetic impact. Their orbital trash collection systems have been modified to gather and redirect debris at relativistic speeds. And this?" Zixis pointed to a particularly large structure. That used to be their primary orbital recycling facility. Now it's what they call a macrofragmenter. It breaks down decommissioned satellites and space junk into precisely sized projectiles. Our shields simply weren't designed to handle this kind of warfare. Zixis moved through the holographic display, their crystalline form refracting the light in patterns that indicated deep thought. They're not just fighting with garbage, they realized. They're fighting with the concept of garbage itself. Everything we destroy becomes a weapon. Everything we ignore becomes a threat. "There's more," Vaughn added reluctantly. "We've detected increased activity in their asteroid mining operations, They're not just converting existing equipment anymore. They're actively manufacturing what they call disposal units, ships designed to break apart into predetermined fragment patterns when hit. They're weaponizing their own destruction. The strategic implications were staggering. The Concordiat's entire military doctrine was based on sophisticated energy weapons, shield harmonics, and precision targeting. But how you target an enemy that shows up on sensors is background noise. How do you defeat ships that become more dangerous when destroyed? The humans have a saying, Nirix offered, their tentacles writhing in what might have been admiration. One person's trash is another person's treasure. They turned it into a military doctrine. Everything we consider worthless, they turn into a weapon. Zixus made a decision. Pull the fleet back to the Kuiper Belt boundary. I want a complete tactical reassessment. We need to understand what we're really fighting here. As the holographic assembly disbanded, Zixus remained, studying the image of Earth's increasingly militarized orbit. The humans had taken everything the Concordiat knew about space warfare and turned it on its head. They hadn't just adapted to their technological limitations, they had turned those very limitations into advantages. In the privacy of their command chamber, Zixus's crystalline form shifted to a hue that their species reserved for profound respect. The humans weren't just surviving. They were rewriting the rules of engagement with whatever materials they had at hand. They had looked at their technological inferiority and asked not how do we catch up, but rather how do we make this work for us. A message from Earth's command arrived, text only. Would you like to discuss those mining protocols now? Our garbage disposal units are always looking for new targets to practice on. Zixus found themselves experiencing an emotion they had never felt before, uncertainty. The Concordiat had always succeeded through superior technology and rigid doctrine. But now they faced an enemy that turned rigid doctrine against itself, that transformed technological superiority into a vulnerability. Perhaps, Zixus reflected, it was time for the Concordiat to learn a lesson about the value of what they had always considered worthless. After all, humans had just proven that even garbage could change the course of a war. Dr. Emily Chen stood in the newly established Orbital Defense Innovation Center, surrounded by holograms of what most species would consider garbage. 6 months into the war with the Concordiat, humanity had moved beyond simply converting mining equipment. They were now doing something that made even their own military leaders nervous. You want to weaponize actual space debris fields? Admiral Zhang asked, his usual composure slipping slightly as he studied the projections. The same debris fields that we've spent decades trying to clean up. Chen grinned, manipulating the hologram to show the vast clouds of defunct satellites, spent rocket stages, and fragments from centuries of space activity that surrounded Earth. Exactly. We've been looking at this all wrong. We've been treating our orbital debris like a problem. It's not a problem. It's a pre-positioned weapon system just waiting to be activated. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now promoted to captain, leaned forward with interest. The Concordiat's already having trouble tracking our converted ships. Natural debris would be even harder for them to detect. Better than that, Chen said, bringing up a new simulation. We've developed what we're calling Shepherd satellites. Small, minimal power units that can subtly influence debris trajectories over time. The Concordiat won't even realize the debris fields are weapons until they're already inside them. The simulation showed a Concordiat battle group moving through what appeared to be a random field of space debris. But as they watched, the apparently chaotic movement of thousands of pieces of junk suddenly took on purpose, spiraling inward like a closing fist. We're not just using the debris as projectiles, Chen continued. We're turning entire debris fields into programmable weapon systems. The Shepherd satellites use minimal power, just enough to nudge pieces into new orbits over time. The real energy comes from the orbital velocity the debris already has. Zhang studied the simulation with growing interest. They'll see the debris fields on their sensors, but they'll read as natural hazards. By the time they realize the debris is moving with purpose, it'll be too late, Chen finished. And here's the best part. We're expanding the system. Every piece of space junk humanity has ever created is about to become part of Earth's defense network. The next Concordia attack came 3 weeks later. Their fleet, having developed what they thought were effective countermeasures against converted mining ships, pushed confidently into the outer reaches of Earth's orbital space. They had no way of knowing they were being watched by thousands of tiny shepherd satellites, each one quietly orchestrating what looked like random pieces of space junk. Captain Rodriguez, now serving aboard the defense platform Orbital Command 2, watched the tactical display with fierce satisfaction. They're entering the outer debris field now. Shepherd satellites report all pieces are responding to guidance. The Concordia fleet, their sleek ships gleaming with advanced technology, moved through what their sensors told them was a standard debris field. Annoying, but nothing their shields couldn't handle. They didn't notice how the debris gradually began to move with purpose, how patterns emerged in the chaos. Debris field convergence in 3, 2, 1. Rodriguez counted down. The space around the Concordia fleet erupted into organized chaos. Thousands of pieces of debris, from tiny fragments to entire defunct satellites, suddenly altered their trajectories. Some pieces moved at relativistic speeds, their decades-old orbital velocities finally finding purpose. Others moved more slowly, herding the alien ships into killing zones where more debris waited. First Concordia ship is showing shield failures, Rodriguez reported, her voice clinical. Their formation is breaking up. They're trying to retreat, but the debris field is too dense. Chen watched from her station as her creation did its work. The debris field moved like a living thing, responding to the subtle influences of thousands of shepherd satellites. Each piece of junk that had ever threatened human spacecraft was now defending those same craft. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than an hour. The mighty Concordia fleet retreated in disarray, their ships bearing scars from impacts with humanity's orbital history. They had come expecting to face primitive warships. Instead, they had faced the accumulated detritus of humanity's entire space age, turned against them with terrible purpose. Message from Grand Admiral Zixus, Rodriguez announced, a hint of amusement in her voice. Text only. It reads, "This is a violation of all known principles of warfare." Send response, Jean ordered. Message. No, Admiral. This is recycling. In the aftermath, as Chen studied the battle data, she reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had taken its greatest orbital challenge, the accumulation of space debris, and turned it into its greatest defense. They hadn't just adapted to their limitations, they had transformed those limitations into strengths. You know what the really beautiful part is, she said to no one in particular. Even if they destroy our shepherd satellites, the debris fields will still be there. Still dangerous, still ours. We haven't just weaponized space junk. We've weaponized the very concept of orbital mechanics. Zhang nodded, understanding. The Concordia had come expecting to find a primitive species playing at space warfare. Instead, they had found one that turned their entire orbital environment into a weapon. Every piece of humanity's spacefaring history, from broken satellites to lost tools, had become part of Earth's defense. They had created something the Concordia couldn't counter because it wasn't really a weapon at all. It was simply space itself, guided by human ingenuity, defending its creators with the very things they had once discarded. Strategic Analyst First Class Nirix burst into Grand Admiral Zixus's command chamber, their tentacles writhing in agitation. The crystalline admiral's form shifted to a shade indicating annoyance at the breach of protocol, but Nirix's next words froze them in place. "We've been blind," Nirix gasped. "The humans, their primitive technology, it's been hiding something far more dangerous." Zixus's form shifted to attention. "Explain." "We've finally completed deep analysis of their debris field operations," Nirix said, interfacing with the chamber's holographic systems. "The movements we're seeing, they're too precise, too coordinated. No human operators could manage that level of synchronization across thousands of independent objects. The hologram displayed the last battle, but now with new overlay data. What had appeared to be random debris movements suddenly revealed intricate patterns, precise calculations, and perfect timing that would be impossible for organic minds to coordinate. They're using artificial intelligence, Zixis realized, their crystalline structure darkening with concern. But our scans showed no sign of advanced computing systems. Because we were looking for the wrong things, Nirix explained. Remember those primitive shepherd satellites? Each one contains what humans call recycled consumer electronics, old smartphones, gaming systems, laptop computers, devices we dismissed as primitive, but networked together. They've built a distributed AI system out of electronic waste. Zixis finished, their form shifting through colors of disbelief and reluctant admiration. While we were laughing at their primitive technology, they were hiding superior artificial intelligence inside it. On Earth, Dr. Chen sat in what looked like a massive electronic recycling center. Surrounding her were thousands of old smartphones, tablets, and computers, all networked together in what her team had dubbed the Silicon Collective. Each device contributed its processing power to the vast, distributed AI system that coordinated Earth's orbital defenses. Network status, she asked, watching lines of code stream across dozens of salvage monitors. The collective is stable, Captain Rodriguez reported, now serving as the liaison between Human Command and their AI defense system. All Shepherd satellites are responding. The debris field AIs are evolving new defensive patterns faster than the Concordiate can analyze the old ones. They watched as a simulation showed their system at work. Each piece of debris in Earth's orbit was now guided by an AI running on recycled electronics, coordinating with thousands of others to create an ever-changing defensive network that was simultaneously primitive and highly sophisticated. The beauty of it, Chen explained to Admiral Zhang, who had come to inspect their progress, is that they can't shut it down. Even if they destroy half our Shepherd satellites, the remaining ones automatically redistribute the processing load. We've turned every piece of electronic waste into a node in humanity's largest computing network. Zhang watched as old smartphones, their screens displaying complex orbital calculations, coordinated the movements of space debris with precision that would make supercomputers envious. And the Concordiate never suspected because they were looking for advanced quantum computers or crystalline processing matrices. Chen finished. They never imagined we'd build a superior AI system out of old iPhones and game consoles. Their scans dismissed our processing power because it didn't match their expectations of what advanced computing should look like. In deep space, the Concordiate fleet was facing an uncomfortable reality. Their enemy wasn't just fighting with primitive technology. They were using that primitive technology to hide sophisticated systems that rivaled or exceeded the Concordiate's own capabilities. Look at this. Nirix showed Zixis another simulation. Their debris field movements. They're learning. Each engagement makes their response patterns more sophisticated. The AIs are evolving strategies faster than our tactical computers can analyze them. Zixis studied the data with growing concern. The humans hadn't just weaponized their garbage. They had turned their electronic waste into a distributed artificial intelligence that was proving more adaptable and resilient than any system the Concordiate had encountered. They're not primitive at all, Zixis realized. They simply found a different path to advancement. While we focused on building bigger quantum computers, they were networking smaller ones together. While we developed sophisticated individual AIs, they built a collective intelligence out of discarded electronics. Back on Earth, Chen watched as her network of recycled electronics coordinated the movements of thousands of orbital objects with ballet-like precision. The Concordiate's next attack would face not just humanity's orbital debris, but the combined processing power of every discarded electronic device humanity had repurposed. You know what the Concordiate's real mistake was, she asked Rodriguez as they watched old smartphones calculate orbital trajectories that would have taken supercomputers hours to process. They assumed that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. They never understood that sometimes the most advanced solution is hidden inside the simplest package. The Silicon Collective continued its work, its consciousness distributed across thousands of recycled devices, each one contributing to humanity's defense. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their repurposed mining ships or their weaponized debris fields. It was their ability to see value and potential in the things others had discarded as obsolete. Grand Admiral Zixus faced the assembled Concordiate High Council, their crystalline form steady, despite the gravity of the situation. The vast chamber, designed to showcase the Concordiate's technological supremacy, suddenly felt less impressive given recent events. "You mean to tell us?" First speaker Xalax's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with disbelief, "that the humans have defeated our finest fleets using garbage, recycled electronics, and mining equipment?" "No," Zixus responded, their form shifting to a shade of profound realization. "They have defeated us using innovation, adaptability, and the ability to see potential where we saw only waste. And now they have made an offer we must consider." The chamber erupted in confused chatter as Zixus projected humanity's proposal. Dr. Chen's face appeared in the hologram, standing confidently beside Admiral Zhang and Captain Rodriguez. "Greetings, Concordiate High Council," Chen began. "We propose a partnership. Your initial complaint was about our mining protocols. Let us show you how our primitive approach might benefit us all." On Earth, Chen watched the transmission with careful optimism. The Silicon Collective had calculated a 78.3% probability of success for this strategy, but the final decision would come down to something no AI could perfectly predict: pride. Our distributed AI network has identified 37 distinct areas where our different approaches to technology could complement each other, she continued. "Yes, our methods appear primitive to you, but they have proven effective, adaptable, and resistant to conventional countermeasures. Imagine what we could achieve together." The council chamber fell silent as Chen's presentation continued, showing simulations of hybrid technologies: Concordiate energy weapons guided by human debris field tactics, mining operations combining both civilizations' approaches, and space development programs that utilize both advanced technology and innovative repurposing. "The choice is yours," Admiral Zhang added. "We can continue this conflict, where we will keep finding new ways to use what you consider obsolete, or we can work together, combining your advancement with our adaptability." In Earth orbit, the Silicon Collective continued its endless calculations, coordinating the movements of countless pieces of debris and converted ships. But now, it was also processing something new: potential peaceful applications of their technology. The council deliberated for what felt like hours. Finally, first speaker Xalax addressed the human delegation. "Your species has demonstrated something we had forgotten in our pursuit of advancement. Progress is not always about creating something new. Sometimes it is about seeing new potential in what already exists." Zixus felt their crystalline form shift to a shade of optimism as the council voted. The decision was nearly unanimous. The war would end, and a new partnership would begin. The aftermath transformed both civilizations. The Concordiate learned to see beyond their preconceptions about technological advancement, while humanity gained access to new technologies they could adapt and improve in their unique way. The Silicon Collective, once a weapon of war, became the foundation for a new kind of hybrid computing network that combined Concordiate quantum systems with humanity's distributed processing approach. "You know what the real victory was?" Chen asked Rodriguez months later, as they watched a joint human Concordiate team converting an old debris field into a self-organizing space station. "We didn't just prove we could fight differently. We proved we could think differently." Rodriguez nodded, monitoring displays where recycled smartphones coordinated with Concordiate quantum computers. "We showed them that advancement doesn't always mean what they thought it meant." In his office at Earth Command, Admiral Zhang received the latest report from the joint development projects. The Concordia had initially struggled to understand humanity's approach to technology, but they were learning. More importantly, they were beginning to appreciate the elegance in humanity's solutions. The humans have a saying. Zixes told the Concordia Academy in their first lecture on human innovation. Necessity is the mother of invention. But they taught us something more. Limitation is the father of innovation. It is not despite their limitations that humans excel, but because of them. The Silicon Collective, now expanded and upgraded with Concordia technology, while still running partially on recycled electronics, calculated a 99.9% probability of long-term success for the partnership. The calculation was based not on technology or resources, but on something more fundamental: the ability of both species to learn from each other. Chen looked out at Earth's orbit, now cleaner but still holding potential for future innovation. In the end, she mused, we didn't win by becoming more advanced. We won by showing them a different kind of advancement. Sometimes the best way forward isn't to build something new, but to see new possibilities in what you already have. The war that had begun over mining protocols had ended in a partnership that would reshape both civilizations. Humanity had proven that true advancement wasn't just about creating new technology. It was about seeing new potential in everything around you, from space debris to old smartphones to supposedly primitive mining equipment. And somewhere in Earth's orbit, a network of recycled electronics continued its calculations, coordinating not weapons of war, but the combined efforts of two civilizations learning to see the universe through each other's eyes.